I'm Travis, and this is decoupled type checking between JSX elements and JSX tag types. So one pain point TypeScript had with JSX was its requirements on the type of every JSX elements tag. This release of TypeScript makes it possible for JSX libraries to more accurately describe what JSX components can return. For many, this concretely means that it will be possible to use asynchronous server components in React. So the background here is you have usually a JSX component is always a self-closing tag or something that closes or opens and then closes itself with two statements. So when type checking that, TypeScript looks up a namespace called JSX and then gets a type out of it called element. So it's looking for JSX.element. But to check whether foo or bar themselves are valid tag names, like back here we had foo and bar, to check whether those are valid tag names, it's roughly just grabbing the types returned or constructed by foo and bar themselves and then checking for compatibility of those elements types with JSX.element. So the limitation here meant that components could not be returned if they did anything other than JSX element. So you could, for some crazy reason, want to be having a JSX element tag like foo, like you want to be rendering a foo, but foo isn't JSX, it's just a string, or foo is just a number, and you want to render that without having to wrap it in the opening and closing, what is that called? A fragment, yes, a fragment. So what they did is to add support mainly for the future async React world. They wanted to make this possible that you could have something where you have just a number or a string that is your thing, because then also in the future you could have a promise of a string and then that would be your resulting thing. So now what is really interesting about this change, if you look into the actual issue that they link, this enables closing two things here, and one of the things that it enables is closing this issue indefinitely typed that React typings allow false for class components but not stateless. So if we go over to VS Code, what you guys can see here is an example where I'm importing greeting from an example function component. And greeting here is just a returned, I was going to show you guys this inline thing so you can see, you can inline the variable now in 5.2. But point being that you could just return greeting equals false here, return greeting. And now the type of this function is a Boolean, but over in layout we're using it as a component. And over in the class component, you also can do this, class greeting extends React component, return false. And if we went over here to the layout, we would say example class component, and everything just works just as well. Now everything just works just as well because we're on React 18.2 typings. If I go back in my package JSON and go back to types React 18.0, I don't even know what subversion. We'll just say something in 18, but hopefully it works. And npm install that. Okay, so we're back on 18.0, and if I go here and I say, let's go back to my class or not my class component, my function component, now it says you can't do that. And that's weird, because there shouldn't be anything different between a function component and a class component in ultimate behavior. So it says that it's a new feature with TypeScript 5.1, but really it's a new feature with upgrading React from 18.0 to 18.2 after the change in TypeScript 5.1. Because it's really not so much a thing that you need to worry about, it's something that libraries that are implementing JSX need to worry about. Okay. Everyone following, do we have any questions on that one?
So my question is, I sort of always understood this to be a feature to sort of prevent developers from accidentally returning true or false because of what it renders. So when you actually render this, it doesn't render the word true or false. It renders, I can't remember if it's a blank or a 0 or a 1. But my question, I guess it wouldn't, this doesn't change anything about that, right? Do you know what it renders as?
We can find out. This is a static site I have built for my dad that's completely open source, so I can just run this and compile it in a second if we want to
Yeah,
revert.
because I always just thought that was intentional. They're
Okay,
like, you
so-
shouldn't be returning false because you have no idea what that looks like, as we don't. So
Okay, so now we have localhost and woohoo, we have the site, but where did the thing go? Okay, so we have a nav bar and then greeting and then main. If we inspect source, we have the nav and then, so it's just not there.
I think that's right. I think we'll just don't render it, so that's really great for a lot of things.
Yeah, so there we go.